Hello and welcome to Fireside Fairytales. If you've never been here before, my name is Rory and you are watching Varietal Literature's YouTube channel, a cozy little corner of the internet for narrative. And if you are watching this live, you should know that on the side there, there is a live chat, and it is already blooming a little crop of potatoes. If you're not watching this live, though, and you just want to get straight to the story, down in the description below there will be a timestamp, and that timestamp will take you right to the start of the story, and we are only reading the one story tonight. And the story that we are reading tonight is called Grim Buckskin. And I'll have a little bit more to say about it very soon. But in the meantime, let me say hello to my chat. I see that Tammy's still not feeling well, and Hira, her daughter, has sold her out as not resting. Tisk tisk, Tammy, go rest. Jumpstore made it on time. Good to see you, Jumpstore. And Uncle Kitty is wondering who the horse wrestler in the pic is. I could probably find out. Give me a second here. At least the source of the art was apparently someone named Harold. He illustrates a poem titled Harold's Song, dedicated to Alfred Lord Tennyson, though I don't think written by him, from the author Jean Lorraine, who I don't know. Alright, well, that question answered. Yeah, so we're reading again from Making Our Way Through Asbjornsen and Moe's Complete Norwegian Folktales and Legends, from translated by Simon Roy Hughes. And this is, of course, the annotated edition. If you want to buy the physical copy yourself, which is a beautiful book, and thick and full of stories and notes, you can get it on Amazon. I'll have a link down below. If you don't want the physical book, you can get the digital books from Amazon if you want, but I don't really recommend it because they put you in a walled garden when you buy from them digitally. So what I would recommend instead, and I will have a link to it as well, is that Simon has a way for you to buy the EPUBs or whatever from him directly through his Ko-fi account, I think. Anyways, those links will be down there. They're not down there right now because the video is still live, but if the video is no longer live and you are watching this back later, it should be down there now. And if not, remind me, because I should have. Anyhow, we are just reading a long and strange tale, as we often do on this show. This one in particular is about horses, and as the thumbnail implies, eventually we will deal with a hell horse. Although that is not the main focus of the story. That comes later on in the story. So, I will repeat this warning in a moment, but I'm just going to say it now. If you don't want to know anything about the story and you don't care at all about content warnings, then, I don't know, mute for like 30 seconds. It won't take me long to say. But if you do care about content warnings, here goes. This has perhaps the highest body count of animals I've ever seen in a folklore tale. It doesn't dwell on them in any gruesome way, but it's still just a lot of dead animals. So if that's going to disturb you, no story's worth that. Go ahead and find another stream or another thing to do, because it is it is the bulk of an entire act of the story. Okay. So, I don't think I really have much context to give, except the old yarn that we like on this show to mention now and then is really apparent here, which is I just refuse to believe that this is not a piece of like pagan mythology that has been recast in a certain way. There's just too much of it that seems exactly like you might have read in some sort of Norse mythos about the gods or whatever else. It does come to concern marriage and proving yourself worthy of it. But it does so in a very almost like Hercules way with his trials. All right. Well, let's get to it. Our first and only story of the night is called Grim Buckskin, and it comes to us from the complete Norwegian folk tales and legends of Asbjornsen and Moe, as translated by Simon Roy Hughes, longtime supporter of the show. Not financially or anything, but just by letting us read his translations. You can get this book yourself, and the link's in the comment down below, or you can also get the digital books at a different link down in the comment below, and it will contain this Grim Buckskin story. A content warning here, there is a substantial amount of animal death in this, though it is not gruesome or dwelled upon. If that disturbs you, you go ahead and skip this stream, that's fine. There was once upon a time a couple of rich folk who had 12 sons, but the youngest didn't want to stay at home once he'd grown up. He wanted to go out into the world to try his luck. His parents said that they thought things were well and good at home and that he might indeed stay with them, but he had no peace inside. He wanted to, and he had to go on his way. So he was given leave. And after he'd walked for a good while, he came to a king's farm, and there he asked to go into service and was allowed. Now, the king's daughter there in that country had been taken into a mountain by a troll. The king had no other children, and so he had all the land. He and all the land were in great sorrow and mourning. The king had promised the princess and half the kingdom to the one who could rescue her, but there was none who could do so, despite there being many enough who tried. Now, after the boy had been there for a year or so, he wanted to go home to visit his parents. And when he arrived home, he found his parents were dead. His brothers had shared everything they owned between themselves, and there was nothing left for the boy. "Shall I not have anything after father and mother, then?" asked the boy. "Who could have known that you were still alive? The way you've wandered and flapped about," his brothers replied. "But no matter. There are 12 mares up on the moors. We haven't divided them up yet, so if you want them as your share, you may have them." Yes, the boy was content with this. He thanked them, and then went on his way up to the moors where the mares grazed. And since he got up there and found them, each of them had a suckling foal, and one of them had a large buckskin colt, which was such that it gleamed. "You are beautiful, my young fool," said the boy. "Yes, but if you kill the other foals, so that I may suckle from all the mares for a year, then you shall see how big and beautiful I'll be then," said the fool. Well, the boy did so. He killed them all. And then he went home. And when he came up to see the foal and to his mares the following year, it was sleek, so sleek that its coat gleamed, and so big that the boy could only just manage to mount it, and all the mares had a foal each again. "Well, it's true that I received as much in return for letting you suckle from all the mares," said the boy to the colt, "but you are big enough now, so you must come with me." "No, I'll stay here for a year longer," said the foal. "Kill all the foals, so I may suckle from all the mares this year too, and then you shall see that I'll grow big and beautiful by the summer." Well, indeed, the boy did so again, and when he came to the moors after the second year, to look to his foals and to his mares, they each had a new foal, and the buckskin foal was so big that the boy could by no means reach up when he tried to touch its neck to feel how fat it was. It was so smooth that it gleamed. "Big and beautiful you were last year, my foal, but this year you are even finer," said the boy. "Such a horse is not to be found at the king's farm, but now you must come with me." "No," said the buckskin again. "I must stay here for another year. Just kill the 12 foals again, so that I can suckle from the mares this year too, and then you shall see me next summer." Well, indeed, the boy did so. He killed all the foals, and then he returned home. And there's a picture here of him climbing up upon this horse, and this horse is enormous. The horse is lying down on the ground, and he is struggling to get up on its back. It's a sort of line drawing, just black and white. I would say the man, if the horse was standing, the man probably only comes up to maybe it's like knee joint. If it's probably not called a knee joint, but whatever the equivalent would be. Now, when he came to look to the buckskin and to his mares the following year, he was simply terrified. He'd never believed an adult horse could be so big and coarse, for the buckskin had to kneel on all fours before the boy could get up to it. And he had trouble enough getting on it, even though it laid down. It was so enormously fat that it gleamed and flashed as if from a mirror. This time the buckskin was not unwilling to go with the boy. He mounted it, and when he came riding home to his brothers, they clapped their hands together and crossed themselves, for they had neither seen nor heard of such a horse before. If you will give me good shoes beneath my horse, and a saddle and a bridle as fine as any that exists," said the boy, "then you shall have all 12 of my mares, as they stand up on the moors, and their 12 suckling foals too." That year, each mare had borne a foal as well. His brothers were content with this, and so the boy got shoes for the horse such that splinters of stone flew high into the air, and when he rode over the mountains, and such a golden saddle and such a golden bridle that they glittered and gleamed at a distance. "And now we travel to the king's farm," said Grim Buckskin. That was his name. "But remember well to ask the king for a good space in the stable and good feed for me." Yes, the boy promised he would not forget. He rode off, and as you can imagine, that it didn't take very long, for the horse that he had was so large. Yes, the boy promised he would not forget. So when he arrived, the king was standing out on the steps, and he glared and stared at he who came riding. "Well, well," he said, "I've never seen such a fellow, and such a fine horse before in my life." And when the boy asked if he could go into service on the king's farm, the king was so glad that he was ready to dance there where he stood on the steps. And it might well be that he should go into service. "Yes, but I want a good stable and adequate feed for my horse," said the boy. Indeed, he would have meadow grass and oats, as much as the buckskin wanted, and all the other knights had to take their horses out of the stable, for Grim Buckskin should stand there alone, so that he might have ample space. Now it wasn't long before the others at the king's farm grew envious of the boy, and they didn't know all the evil they would do if only they dared. Finally, they decided to tell the king that he had said that he was good to rescue the king's daughter, whom the troll had taken into the mountain a long time before, whenever he liked. So the king immediately summoned him based on this gossip, and said that so-and-so had told him what the boy had said he was good for, and now he should do so too. If he could, then he should. And know that the king had promised him both his daughter and half the kingdom, and this he would have fairly and squarely. But if he could not, then he should be killed. The boy denied saying it, but that did no good. The king would not listen in that ear, and so there was nothing to do but try. He went down to the stable as downcast and sorrowful as he was, and Grim Buckskin asked what he was so downcast for. Well, the boy told him, saying that he didn't know how he should go about it. For rescuing the king's daughter, that is just not a good idea, said the boy. "Oh, it's not so dangerous a matter yet," said Grim Buckskin. "I shall help you, but first you must shoe me well. You must demand 20 pounds of iron and 12 pounds of steel for the shoes, and 1 smith to forge, and 1 to shoe." Indeed, the boy did so, and he was not refused. He got both the iron and the steel in the smiths, and thus was Grim Buckskin shod both well and good. Then the boy rode out of the king's farm so that the dust swirled behind him. And now when he arrived at the mountain the king's daughter had been taken into, he needed to climb the mountain wall to where he would go inside. For the mountain stood straight, up and down, as steep as a cabin wall and as smooth as a window pane. The first time the boy rode on the path, he came away up the mountain wall, but then Buckskin slid with both forelegs, and they rode down again so that the moors resounded. The second time he rode, and he came away farther up, but then one foreleg slid, and down they came as if they'd been an earthquake. But the third time Buckskin said, "Now let us try," and then he tilted at the wall so that the stones flew to the heavens about them, and thus they came up. The boy rode in at full tilt, snatched the king's daughter up onto the horn of the saddle, and went out again before the troll got so far as to get up from its slumber. And thus was the king's daughter rescued. And when the boy returned to the king's farm, the king was both happy and satisfied that he had his daughter back. Don't you know? But now, however it did or didn't happen, the others in the king's farm had provoked the king's anger against the boy. "Thank you, for you have rescued my daughter," he said to the boy, and when he came into the castle with her. And then he had to leave. "Now she should be mine as well as yours, for you are a man of your word, are you not?" said the boy. "Yes, yes," said the king. You shall have her, since I have said it. But first, you must get the sun to shine here on the king's farm." For just outside the windows stood a high mountain that threw its shadows so that the sun didn't come in. One could argue, build it a better place, but that's not what the king did. "Well, that wasn't in our agreement," replied the boy, "but I don't suppose that helps. I must try my best, for I want the king's daughter." And so he went down to Buckskin again and told him what the king had demanded. And then Grim Buckskin said that they could do it, but he'd have to have new shoes beneath him. And these would take 20 pounds of iron and 12 pounds of steel. And 2 smiths were needed, one to forge and one to shoe. Then they should get the sun to shine on the king's farm. Well, when the boy demanded this, he got it at once. The king thought it would be shameful to refuse him, and so he just refused him on a deal he made. Never mind, doesn't matter. And so Grim Buckskin was shod with new shoes, and those shoes did the job. The boy mounted, and off they went on their way again. And for each leap that Grim Buckskin made, the mountain sank by 15 ells down into the earth. And so they carried on until the king could no longer see the mountain. And when the boy came down to the king's farm again, he asked if the king's daughter should not now be his, for he knew nothing other than that the sun shone in the castle, he said. But the others at the king's farm had provoked the king again, and so he replied that the boy should have her. He'd never thought anything else. But first, of course, he should secure her a bridal horse that was as fine as the bridegroom's horse. The boy said that the king had never spoken of this before, and now he believed he deserved the king's daughter. But the king, he insisted, and if the boy couldn't do it, that he should lose his life, said the king. Well, the boy went down to the stable again, and you may imagine how sullen and downcast he was. There he told Grim Buckskin that the king had now demanded he get the king's daughter a bridal horse as fine as the horse the bridegroom had, or he would lose his life. "It's no good, I don't think," he said, "for there is not like of you in all the world." "Oh, yes, there is like of me," replied Grim Buckskin. "But it will not be easy to get it, for it is in hell. We must try, however. Now you shall go up to the king and demand new shoes beneath me, and they require 20 pounds of iron, and 12 pounds of steel again, and 2 smiths, and 1 to forge, and 1 to shoe. And mind the nails and the toe are properly sharp. We must have with us 12 barrels of rye, 12 barrels of barley, and 12 slaughtered bulls. And you must demand that each of the 12 bull skins we have with us should have 1,200 nails in it, and all this we must have, as well as a tar barrel with 12 barrels of tar in it." Well, it was a strange request indeed, but the boy went up to the king and demanded everything Grim Buckskin had said, and again the king thought it would be a shame to refuse him, and so he got everything. Then he mounted Grim Buckskin and rode off, and when he'd ridden far, far away, over the mountain and moor, Buckskin asked, "Do you hear anything?" "Yes. There is a terrible rustling up in the air. I think I am afraid," said the boy. It is all the wild birds of the forest flying, for they have been sent to stop us, said Grim Buckskin. But cut holes in the sacks of grain, and they shall have so much to gorge on that they shall forget us. Indeed, the boy did so. He cut holes in the sacks of grain so that the barley and the rye ran out on every side. Then the wild birds of the forest came so dense that the sun was blotted out, and when they saw the grain they could not help themselves, but lighted and hacked and pecked at the barley and the rye, until finally they began to flock together and fight amongst themselves, and they did nothing to the boy and Grim Buckskin, but simply forgot about them. Also, they are on a journey to get a horse apparently from hell. So I feel like if birds in the forest can stop you, maybe you're not ready for the hell horse. Now the boy rode again, both far and farther than far, over mountain and valley, over hill and heath, and then Grim Buckskin stopped to listen. He asked the boy if he heard anything. Yes, I hear a terrible rumbling from the forest on every side. I think I'm scared now, said the boy. That is all the wild animals of the forest, said Grim Buckskin. They have been sent to stop us, but throw out the 12 bull carcasses, and they shall have enough to do with them, and shall forget about us. Indeed, the boy threw out the bull carcasses, which makes it sound like he's just chucking eggs, man. Do you know how much a bull weighs? Both bear and grayshanks and lions and all kinds of terrible animal. And when these saw the bull carcasses, they tore into them and fought over them until their blood flowed, and they simply forgot about the boy and Grim Buckskin. So the boy rode on his way again, many, many horizons, for you can imagine that he was not slow on Grim Buckskin. And then Grim Buckskin neighed. Do you hear anything? Yes, I hear what sounds like the whinnying of a foal, so faintly, far, far, far away, replied the boy. It is an adult foal, said the Grim Buckskin. It sounds so faint because he is so far away from us. And so they traveled a good distance more, a horizon or so, and then Grim Buckskin neighed once more. Do you hear anything now? He said. Yes. Now I clearly hear that it neighs like a grown horse, replied the boy. Yes, you shall hear it once more, said Grim Buckskin, and then you shall hear there is speech in it. And they traveled a horizon or so more, and then Grim Buckskin neighed for a third time, but before he managed to ask the boy if he heard anything, there was such a whinnying over the moor that the boy thought that rock and mountain would rend. Now, it is here, said Grim Buckskin. Quickly, throw the bull skins with the nails in them over me. Throw the barrels of tar across the ground. Then climb a great spruce there. When it comes, it will spew fire from both nostrils, which will catch the tar barrels. Then pay attention. If the flames arise, then I am winning. But if they fall, then I am losing. If you see, though, that I am winning, then cast the bridle on it. You have to take it off me, and then it will turn docile. and as soon as the boy had managed to throw the nailed bull hides over Grim Buckskin and the barrels of tar across the ground, and had climbed the spruce, a horse came with fire shooting from it, and the fire caught the barrels of tar immediately. It and Grim Buckskin then began to fight, so that the stones danced up in the sky. They bit, they kicked, both with their forelegs and their hind legs, and sometimes the boy looked at them, and sometimes he looked at the barrels of tar, and eventually the flames, they rose. For wherever the other horse bit, and whatever it kicked, it struck the nailed hides, and it had to withdraw. And when the boy saw this, he was not slow to come down from the tree and cast the bridle on it. And then it was so docile that he could control it with a thread of twine. The horse was also a buckskin. Indeed, it was so like Grim Buckskin that no one could tell them apart. Uncle Kitty says, anyone know what a gray shanks is? I believe it's a wolf, or basically a wolf. The boy mounted the buckskin horse he had caught and rode back home to the king's farm, and Grim Buckskin ran loose with him, and when he arrived, the king stood out in the courtyard. Can you now tell me which horse I've caught and which I had before? Said the boy. Can you not? Then I think your daughter belongs to me. Well, the king went and looked at both buckskins, both high and low, both before and behind, and there was not a hair of difference between them. No, said the king, I cannot tell you, and since you have got my daughter so fine a bridal horse, you shall have her. But we must try one thing first. If this to be, she shall first hide herself twice, he said, and afterwards you shall hide yourself twice. If you can find her both times, she has hidden herself, but she cannot find you both times you've hidden yourself, then it is meant to be, and then you shall have the king's daughter. That is not a part of the agreement either, said the boy. But we must try, since this is the way things stand. And so the king's daughter should hide herself first. Yeah, I think Uncle Kitty has summarized it well there. OMG, the king is still stalling. I know. He doesn't even follow the rules of 3. He really doesn't want this guy to marry him. She turned herself into a duck and lay swimming on the water that was close by the king's farm. The boy simply went down to the stable and asked Grim Buckskin where she had hidden herself. Oh, you need only take your gun, go down to the pond, and aim at the duck that lies swimming there, said Grim Buckskin. I'm sure she shall come forth again. Well, the boy snatched up his gun, and he went down to the water. I want to squeeze that duck, he said, and began to aim at it. No, no, dear me, don't shoot. It is I, said the king's daughter, and so he found her this time. The second time, she turned herself into a loaf of bread. I think I've done that a few times. And laid herself on the table with 4 others. She was so like the other loaves that no one could tell them apart. But the boy went down to the stable, to Grim Buckskin again, and said that now the king's daughter had hidden herself, and he had no idea where she had hidden herself. Oh, simply take and sharpen a good bread knife, and feign that you want to cut right through the 3rd loaf from the left of the 5 that lie on the table in the king's farm. Then she shall come forth, and again, said Grim Buckskin. I realize this is sort of like Gandalf with a neigh. Indeed, the boy went up to the kitchen and began to sharpen the biggest bread knife he could find. And then he gripped the third loaf of bread from the left and set the knife to it as if he should cut right through. "I want a crust from this loaf," he said. "No, dear me, don't cut. It is I," said the king's daughter again, and so he found her the second time too. Now it was his turn to hide himself. First he turned himself into a horsefly and hid himself in Grim Buckskin's left nostril. The king's daughter went and searched and sniffed everywhere, both high and low, and then she wanted to go into Grim Buckskin's stall as well, but he began to bite and kick around himself so that she dared not, and thus she could not find him. Now, I get the king is hesitant to let this guy marry her. But this conceit seems to invite the fact that she could just fail this on purpose because she wants to marry the guy or she doesn't. And the fact that she's searching so much makes me feel like she also doesn't want to marry him. So what's the problem with this kid? I mean, I guess the only thing he has going for him is a big horse that seems to know too much. We don't know much of anything about him. Maybe he's a wiener. "Well, since I cannot find you, then you must come forth by yourself," she said. Straight away the boy stood by her side on the stable floor. Well, the second time Grim Buckskin again told him what he should turn himself into, and this time he turned himself into a clod of earth and set himself between the hoof and shoe on Grim Buckskin's left forefoot. The king's daughter went and searched, and searched, and searched again, both outside and inside. Finally, she came into the stable and wanted to go into Grim Buckskin's stall. Yes, this time he would let her approach him, and she sniffed both high and low, but under his hooves she could not come. He stood too heavily on his legs for that. And Grim Buckskin did. Grim Buckskin did. And thus she could not find the boy. "Yes, then you better come forth by yourself, since I cannot find you," said the king's daughter, and straight away the boy stood beside her on the stable floor. "Yes, now you are mine," said the boy to the king's daughter, "for now you can see what that it is meant to be," he said to the king. "Yes, if it is meant to be, then so be it," said the king, and the wedding was prepared both well and quickly, and the boy mounted Grim Buckskin, and the king's daughter his like, and as you can imagine that it didn't take long to get to the church. It's subtle, but what was that story about? I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just an entertaining tale. Uncle Kitty says, how did he walk into hell to marry a perfect stranger? That alone suggests he's a little weird. Yeah, so the only way this story makes sense to me is if this is a story of, like, gods, right? The shape-shifting, the ability to get abnormally large horses, the sort of heroic feats to get a woman, the fact that nobody questions the authority of the king. This feels very, I don't know who it would be. I mean, it's Norway, so maybe Wotan or something, but like, this just has the vibe to me of a pagan god story, because I just don't understand why a story would be structured this way and not feel the need to explain itself, I guess is what I would say. Like, for me, it's not impossible to understand that, like, other people have the ideas of shape-shifting beyond gods. But usually when a story has something remarkable like that, they give a reason for it. It's not always good reasons, but it usually sees a point in addressing it. So it'll say something like, she could shapeshift for her. She had a touch of magic to her, or she had her special bracelet or something. And the fact that this story doesn't seem to feel the need to explain why multiple people can shapeshift just makes me think this must have been some shadow of a myth about gods of some sort. But, you know, you let me know what you think. I'm always interested when folks give me their own opinion. Also, just the kind of like brutality might is right kind of thing. Like, the premise of the story is that this horse got powerful by insisting that another kill all his competitors. And that kind of like brutalist old ethos you see more in like pagan tales. It's very like, you know, the nature, I guess, is what I would say. Competing for the top kind of thing. But who knows? Maybe other people have picked up on elements I didn't pick up on. At the very least, what I will say is, aside from, well, the premise of like a kid gets older and wanders off the farm, and aside from the idea that the king keeps making requests because gossips are saying that this person is talking a big game and not acting on it. Those I've seen before, but the rest of this is completely unique to me. I've not seen a tale talk about making a creature really big by killing all its young competitors so that it may nurse for many years more. I've not seen most of these challenges before, or like the idea that the main conceit is that he needs to get metal for massive shoes. I've not seen one where he tramps down mountains so the king can see the sun. These are all completely unique to me. And maybe in some of the stories, there's 3 volumes to this book, and you know, they're not thin. So maybe yet I'll see more in the Norwegian traditions that reference this kind of these cycles. But this is all very original to me. I've not heard anything like this out of any of the German and Russian and Celtic folklores that we've read on this channel. And in that, I found it very interesting. I hope you did as well. As for me, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward story. And a quiet day in the chat all the same. So, what I will say, though, is I hope Tammy feels better. And it was good to see Jumpstar, Uncle Kitty, GS. And if you're out there... Oh, and Kitten Pelt. And if you folks are out there just lurking, I completely respect that. And I appreciate you keeping me company all the same. As far as I am concerned, I will see you next week on the day before my birthday. So that'll be fun. So, as for me, I will keep the fire going. You folks have yourself a good sleep.